Do you have a mountain of paper scraps? Do you ever wonder if they're useful or if you should just throw them all away? I just recently saw some advice from another crafter where she shared that if you've got anything less than half a card panel front in size, it's probably worth just tossing away. But I had a different idea, so I wanted to invite you to join me on a creative challenge. Welcome to season 1 of Use Your Stash Paper Scraps Edition. This series is all about turning your paper scraps into fun, intentional projects. I started this idea while prepping a workshop for a homeschool group and realised that scraps can spark their own creative challenge. For the group, I needed a project that could work for kids that were aged 3 to 16. I was inspired by a project I'd made a few years ago which took paper patterned strips and turned them into a pretty note card. The original project was inspired by Jenny Pauly, who was on the artisan design team with me at the time, and it used a designer series paper pack that coordinated with each other, which was fantastic. But for this project, I wanted to use up some of this stash that I've been collecting. So I thought I would inspire the kids to work in rainbows. So I went through my stash and I pulled out just lots of random sized little pieces and strips, and I made sure they all had a variation of red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, all the colors of the rainbow. And they had so much fun. This was the sample that I brought along to inspire them. I also brought an up-leveled one for the more advanced participants who wanted to learn some of this stitched faux stitching. And they did their own stamping, whereas I did a few pre-cut sentiments for our younger cohort. Some of the kids followed the sample, others created their own versions. I was really inspired by their creativity, and I'll share some of those photos here. Now I thought I'd show you how I put the kits together and the choices I made along the way, and then you can craft along with me step by step, right from your own desk. Let's get started. Each child's kit was really different because I was pulling from piles I'd created using my own scrap stash. I'd divided them all by colour families so that I could just take tones that I felt would complement each other nicely. So this particular kit has quite a bright red, an orange. I've added in this deeper orange, mixing in patterned paper with some of our black plainer cardstock strips allowed me to use them. I've tied in the brighter green because I've had that in this pattern here, and I'm just going to have a little play with an order that I think looks pretty. So here I've landed on our purples at the start, some red, a deeper orange. I've not added yellow to this little collection because I feel like this yellowy green, it's the lime citrus green, kind of fills that space. And the yellows that I had just didn't feel like they were adding value in the mix there. And now I'm just going to cut them and stick them haphazardly onto my card front. So I've just trimmed these pieces so that I've got varying sizes, and I'm going to just glue them into place. I've got some that are sitting above and some that are poking out under, so I'm just being aware of that as I go. And they're not all sitting exactly straight. I love that this glue gives me a little wiggle room. You might have noticed that because I have just a little strip of liquid glue on my pieces, I had a little flexibility in slipping pieces in and under. This one's a little more stuck. So this was one of the other kits I had left over. You can see that the patterned papers and the strips here are all very different, but the one thing that's the same is that you can move through a rainbow with them. So I'll put those in an order that looks good, and then I'll show you the more advanced version. For this piece, instead of going directly onto the card base, you'll need an extra panel that's cut just shy, about with a 5mm border around the side. I am going to start with my darker tones at the top and move down through to reds and pinks this time, and I kind of liked the way this order came together, so I'm going to glue those onto this panel and come back and show you that next step. So those strips have all been glued down. I'm happy with how that's come together. As I was gluing them this time, I just stuck them where I wanted them to go and decided I was just going to trim the overhang. And then I've got this foam mat. So I've just brought you down a little closer so you can see I've got this paper piercing guide. I'm going to use this black line here as the edge of my card and pierce along this first row of dots, keeping an eye that my guide doesn't move off that edge of the paper too much. And then I'm going to use a black pen, a black gel pen. And as I draw along, I'm just going to make sure that my pen tip goes into each hole. If you imagine that you were sewing, the machine needle pushes the thread down into each hole. That's what gives us that great faux stitching technique. I set that aside for a minute. We're going to get that card base back, glue that on there. My pen was a little bit wet still when I put pressure on it, so if you are using a gel pen like me, give it a little longer to dry than I just did. Sometimes I find if I use just a regular eraser, I can tidy that up a little. So for the sentiment, I just pulled out this PS You're the Best stamp set. It's got a few here that would fit in a small circle, which was die cut with this. I'm actually got my eye on the birthday note though. I'm wondering how that might look. I'm worried that the sentiment would then be a little bit too big, but I'm going to give it a try and we'll see what we think. So I've mounted the stamp onto a clear block, and I've got a heap of white scraps here. I've got a Memento Tuxedo Black. I'm going to ink that carefully. Firm press down and up, keeping it balanced. Then I'm going to run that through the Big Shot. It doesn't quite hug the sentiment as closely as I might like, but we'll see. I think it still works. I'm just comparing it to this one. I actually do like the circle much better. All right, so I've already got a few circles made up. I'm going to use a dimensional to stick that in place. And there we have it. There's the stepped up version. It's the same basic idea, just an extra layer and a few little details for those who wanted to take it a little further. Now let me show you something. This is my scrap pile. I've used lots and lots of strips for the class kits and for this project today, and it looks exactly the same somehow. And that's the moment that I realized that one project isn't going to make a dent. But what if a series of intentional challenges might? So I'm not cleaning this up. I'm leaving all of the scraps out here on my desk, and I'm going to hit it over the next few challenges and see what kind of damage that I can do thoughtfully, creatively, and without buying anything new. So if you have a scrap pile that you're staring at too, I'd love for you to join me. Pull it out, don't overthink it, and let's see what we can turn it into. This was season 1, episode 1. I look forward to seeing you in episode 2 when we tackle the second challenge. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Thank you.